I just saw. I was watching Joe Rogan talking to Rob Zombie, and for the longest time, I thought Rob Zombie was this guy who was probably really kind of into himself or something, and started this band, and got to be really big, and I've heard other people say that he just like ignores people and stuff. And I listen to the guy, and the guy is he's down to earth. He's somebody who had a kind of humble upbringing and um, was ignored in school and all sorts of things like that. And I know guys like that whenever I was in school who were, I had a friend who wanted to make horror movies, and he was really down to earth and just, not somebody that would go out and commit evil acts, but it was just kind of something that attracted him, was making movies about, horrific stuff. And I have horrific dreams. I mean, the last dream that I had was one where everybody was getting this virus or something, and their like heads were falling off and stuff, and they, I mean, that all sorts of awful stuff like that, and I was trying to stay away from certain people because I knew they had the virus, and that they turned into like Dracula, like zombies or something. But that was like my last dream that I had when I slept, and then there was one before that that was kind of just the same sort of horrific stuff. So I have like bad dreams, and I've had them regardless of the state of my life. I've always had these very creative, horrific dreams. Sometimes they end up just being strange. Um, so it's not that I would want to make a movie of any of them because I hate horror movies. And when I'm awake or whatever, I prefer movies. If I the closest I come to horrific is doing what I just did, which was watching a Rob Zombie documentary on Charles Manson. And I thought I understood Charles Manson until I saw that documentary, and then I started to really figure out what went wrong with Charles Manson. And what it was that just judgment error that ended up just kind of probably changing his whole perception of himself in such a way that made him feel like he's of no good, that he's an evil person, and that he should just um, perform evil or something like that. But this is what happened was that um, somebody had sold was gonna make a deal where he could buy from one drug lord, buy some drugs, and would turn around and uh, transfer to another, to a pusher or whatever, half the drugs at the same price. Then he was going to take the drugs, half of those drugs, and sell them and make a lot of money for himself. Um, what happened was that somebody found out and was going to kill him, um, or he said that the money was with this family, the Charles Manson family. And these people were really just kind of loving each other and making babies, and playing to make babies and stuff like that. And he somehow, the guy who wanted revenge or wanted payback, was going to go up and kill that family or something. And Charles Manson heard about it and headed down there to kill the man. The man was black. Who was what he did is he had held the girlfriend of the guy who had done the bad deal and was going to kill her. And Charles Manson headed down there to kill this black man, and he killed him. And then he found out he was associated with the Black Panthers, and he feared that his entire group of women and him and the people that were in the Manson family, and they hadn't done anything bad until that point, that he ended up killing the black man, and then was fearing, he got paranoid that the Black Panthers were going to come after him and the family. So then, um, since he had killed this person, he was afraid that the family would rat on him. So he had all of the girls, everybody, commit go out and kill somebody, and to perform the evil acts, so they would all be complicit in murder, and that nobody would rat out on anybody else. So it was like they were forming a commune, but in order to force everybody to to you know to avoid telling about what Charles had done, about everybody was going to have to kill somebody. And this is what led the girls and whatnot to killing somebody. And as a result of killing somebody, they felt this dread of having done evil. And what that dread does to you is it makes you feel like you're unforgivable. And that unforgiveness leads you to think that you're like children of Satan. And the people they got to protect them was these guys who were bikers, Satan's disciples or something like that, some biker gang. But the thing is that the entire group of girls and everything, they all got to feeling like, including Charles, got to feeling like they were, but it was Charles' bad deal of him trying to make the entire family, because he didn't trust them. He thought that they were going to rat out on him, and so he was in fear for his life. It's usually whenever you're in fear for your life, and that you've done something bad, and then you feel like you're of no good, that it leads to um, this sort of thing. You just feel like you're worthless, and you're unforgivable, and that's what turns people into Christians. One thing that turns people into Christians is they come to realization that God isn't like the way people are in the world. God doesn't hold that against you, that you can still redeem yourself of that, and because he made a mistake, but he did it to save the family from being killed by this guy, because he was also associated with the Black Panthers, and he was afraid. I don't know. He didn't. He either found that out at the time or later on, and that paranoia and all that stuff made him change all this stuff. And probably the thing is that they all felt like they were unforgivable, and as a result of that, um, they turned evil, and they thought that all they were good for was performing evil acts, and that they were um, probably Satan's children, and also, and that at that time in the '60s or whatever, um, the way people treated each other, even Christians and stuff, was that there was a lot of pressure into being perfect. People dressing perfect, and that was what caused the hippies to grow out their beards and the long hair and stuff, was to say that because there was extreme vanity in the world, and people were more concerned that it was kind of like, if you were a good person, if you looked good, and you and you were perceived as being a good person. And so any thing like smoking dope or anything would make you look evil, and people would think that you were an evil person. This sort of thing happened to Frank Zappa when he was living in a town, and he was making kind of really weird music, and the people in the town didn't like the music he was creating, so they conspired against him to try to get him put in jail, and he ended up in jail for 3 years. What they did is they wanted him to create music for a snuff movie, and he didn't. And he was like, okay, and wasn't really into it. I mean, make music for a movie. They didn't tell him it was a snuff movie, but they didn't have a snuff movie. They were just trying to get him into doing something that would be perceived as evil, and then they got the cops involved, and they put him in jail for 3 years. So this is the culture that they were in. So if somebody killed somebody, um, you can see how they would start to get paranoid of not only say the Black Panthers, but also the perception of their families, of them, and people that they knew of them, and so he ended up turning evil, and he probably thinks. I mean, he's probably. I don't know if he's dead now. I'm sure he is, but he probably thought for the longest time that he was unforgivable, and as a result of that, um, that nobody would understand him or why he was, you know. But he came up with this idea that there would be a race war, and that would kind of be their way of getting out of all of this business. That the Black Panthers would go after the white people, and so they tried to construct this. He tried to. The reason why they killed Sharon Tate and all that, and said down with the pigs and all that stuff, was to try to create a race war. They were extremely paranoid. They were smoking weed and stuff like, and I've heard that weed kind of makes you a little bit paranoid, and so it was probably as a result of doing drugs of various sorts that it made them a bit crazy and made him a bit crazy, and he went off and constructed this whole plan that he would get the entire family involved in killing, and would construct this um, this whole plan to get to start the race war, because it already seemed like it was happening. It was just a matter of some spark needing to ignite it, and that was the idea behind them going after and killing Sharon Tate and doing these evil murders. And in his mind, it was what was required to get everybody complicit in murder, so that they would they were not expecting to be caught, but you get all the people involved in murder, then nobody's going to rat out on anybody else, and they could still have their commune. And but the thing is that once you get everybody involved in the act of murder, what you had before, you cannot have again, because now everybody feels like they're an evil person, and he had to convince them that they're not evil because they committed this act. He was just getting that to keep them from ratting out on him, because he was afraid to go to jail. And he felt like if he killed one person, I'm sure that he'd go into jail for life. He ended up going into jail for life, but it was because he had he wasn't willing to trust anybody else in that group. And in a commune, what makes a commune stick together is absolute trust. And when he killed that one person, he lost the trust of. I mean, he lost trust of the other people that were in that group, and he knew that somebody was going to rat out on him, and so he's afraid that he was going to go to jail. And as a result of that, he made the choice to get everybody in that group involved in murder. There was already something wrong with the commune in the first place, because he had convinced all these nice girls to have sex, and I mean, there was evil already there, but it got even worse. And I don't know. I just he's probably somebody that was abused. Who knows? You have to kind of think about people are not people don't end up being evil from the beginning. It's somebody that makes them evil that ends up making them evil, unless they're a psychopath, um, which doesn't have the capacity to empathize with other people. It doesn't mean that they're evil. It just means that they don't identify other people as being like themselves. So by default, by their natural makeup, killing is not. They don't see anything wrong in killing because everybody looks like a cartoon character to them. They don't identify anybody as being human like them. You see, their empathy doesn't even work. And it's the empathy that permits us to feel for other people, but psychopaths don't. But for normal people who are not psychopaths, um, it's a different sort of deal. But anyhow, I'll just end it there. But just to let you know, there is hope even for guys like Charles Manson. It's just, I don't know. There are people that say, well, you can't imagine that guy being perfectly normal and stuff. And it's possible that he was probably okay. It just he did something wrong, and then it just led him to be paranoid and think that he was unforgivable, and that that I knew a preacher um, who I'm trying to remember his name. He was a football player. Was the who went to the Church of Christ in Albuquerque near the university, and I'm trying to remember his name. It's like on the tip of my tongue, and he had kind of like a girl's name, but not really. And he told me that he was driving down the highway one night and he ran over something, and he swore it was a person in a in in a sack, or I mean, it was somebody homeless that was just living on the side of the road, and he ran over this and went, boom, and he knew it was a person, or he felt like it was a person, and he didn't go back to check, and from that point on, he thought that he had killed somebody, and this is before I guess he became a preacher, but it probably caused him to become a preacher as a result of that. Um, but man, his name is on the tip of my tongue, and I can't recall it. Any, Anyhow, I mean, he was the greatest guy in the world, just really very charismatic and stuff like that. And but if you looked at his church, it wasn't like he had a lot of money. I mean, the church was um, the building had been constructed in the '60s, and I went there in the '90s, and so there was a good 30 years that it had been erected, and it just not they haven't improved the looks of it, and it wasn't like the congregation was that big. The congregation, to the size of the building, it was about a third of the building size, and so that was a congregation that was kind of like not in a really good side of town. And the university was like that. You had the university, and then you just had slums all the way around, or just really low income families and stuff. And some places there were slums in the area. There was drug use and there was problems with crime on the campus. The campus had to have their own police force, to give you an idea, and they had all these like little call boxes all over the campus that you could press a button because there had been rapes on campus, and people getting abducted and things like that. And I mean, it's on Central, and Central for the longest time had problems with crime, and they have gun shops and 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 booze, gun shops. I mean, that's how you know you're in the seedy part of town, is when you see pawn shops and gun shops. and somewhere down there was these hotels where prostitutes were turning tricks, and that sort of thing. Um, so anyhow, it was just kind of a it was also a very liberal side of town too, and it's a liberal college. I went to a liberal college, and I think I wouldn't change a thing about that, going to that college, because it gave me a different perspective on the world. Um, it made it so that you really realize that nobody was completely right. Um, my alternative was to go to where my brothers went, was ACU, Abilene Christian University, where they charge you like the rep to go to college, and the university would get in all this money from the students, and then they would direct buildings for various sorts of things rather than bringing the money back to the students. UNM did the same thing. The difference there was, at UNM they'd throw money at the sports, at coliseums and stuff, so because Albuquerque didn't have any football team, they would turn the college football team into their football team for the entire state, and so they would collect money from that, but that money would just go back into the sports programs. It wouldn't go into paying the instructors any better, and so the students didn't get really a very good deal out of that. It was kind of like, what was important to UNM was the sports program. The students' education didn't matter shit, and so it's kind of the deal with every single university, even the universities that you would think would be good, like Abilene Christian. They did the same thing. It was just that they put their money into big buildings that would win praise from the alumni, and the alumni would throw money back in to the university, and it usually never improved the price of the schooling for the students. You would pay like He would pay like five, four to five times more than I would pay at UNM. At UNM, I could get a credit hour for $99. For him, it was like $400. And so, I mean, if you have to take 140 credit hours, you're gonna have to have you're gonna have to take out of school. So anyhow, I'm stopping it here because my thing's running